Hello everyone, this is Yao Wan from the Huazhong University of Science and Technology. It's my honor to share our paper titled What Do They Capture? A Structural Analysis of Pre-trained Language Models for Source Code. This work is joined with Professor Hongyu Zhang from the University of Newcastle, Professor Yulei Sui, and Professor Guangdong Xu from the University of Technology Sydney. With the development of artificial intelligence, various work have been proposed to apply machine learning, especially deep learning techniques, into automating several code-related tasks, which is also called code intelligence. In code intelligence, one fundamental task is code representation learning, which aims to encode the code semantics into distributed vectors. For example, given a code snippet, a code representation model is to map the source code into distributed vectors in a feature space. The learned code representation then can be used to support various downstream tasks such as code classification and code summarization. Current approaches to code embedding mainly fall into two categories from the perspectives of supervised and unsupervised learning. The supervised approach are typically developed for specific tasks following the encode-decode architecture. In this architecture, an encode network such as LSTM, CNN, and transformer is used to produce a representation of a program. Another line of code embedding research is based on unsupervised learning, such as code-to-vect. Recently, self-supervised models which are pre-trained through masked language modeling have attracted much attention. Various pre-trained models have been proposed for source code such as CodeGPT, CodeBERT, and GraphCodeBERT. However, these pre-trained models of code are large and complex, always seen as black box. From our investigation, current studies only show in which scenarios a code embedding technique works better, without explaining the inner mechanism of why they achieve good results. It is still not clear why these models work and what features correlation they can capture. In this work, we aim to open the black box of pre-trained code models and explore the interpretability of them. More specifically, we try to answer the following question. Can the existing pre-trained language models learn the syntactical structure of source code written in programming languages? At the beginning, we first present some preliminaries of the language model pre-training. The pre-trained models are mainly based on masked language modeling. Given a corpus of code snippet, the inputs are first masked with a probability. For example, in our case, the token K is masked by a special mask token. The input is then fed into a series of transformer layers as to reconstruct the masked input. Here, we can say the pre-trained models are mainly composed of transformer layers, which are solely based on self-attention mechanism. In self-attention mechanism, given an input say, the self-attention mechanism assigns each token Wi a set of attention weights over the token in the input. For example, the alpha ij given C denotes the attention that Wi pays to Wj. In this work, we limit our research scope into two pre-trained language models for source code. The first one is CodeBERT, which takes the concatenation of source code and natural language description as inputs, and pre-trains a language model by masking the inputs. The second model is GraphCodeBERT, which improves CodeBERT by incorporating the data flow information among variables into model pre-training. Before diving into the inner mechanics of pre-trained language models for source code, we first have an initial visualization of attentions. Given a Python code snippet and its corresponding AST, the red figure visualizes the self-attention head map for layer 5. From this figure, We can observe that self-patterns indeed exist in the self-attention heat map in the form of groups of the red rectangles. Interestingly, we can find that each group of tokens is close to each other in the AST. Taking if exist code is not known as an example, which is an if statement, we can say that in the AST, all these tokens are in the same branch of if statement. In addition, we can see that these code tokens are also closely connected in the self-attention heat map. To figure out why pre-trained models of source code work, we organize our research questions from two perspectives. Firstly, we analyze the attention weights with the aim to know whether the attention aligns with the structure of code. With regard to the learned contextual embeddings after a series of transformer layers, we propose the second and the third research questions. Our second research question is, can pre-trained model embed the syntactical structure in its contextual order embedding? And the third research question is, are pre-trained models able to induce the syntax structure of code? To answer the first research question, we conduct attention analysis, which aims to analyze how attention aligns with the syntactical relations in source code. In particular, we consider the syntactical relations such that the attention weight is high between two AST tokens sharing the same parent load. Given a code snippet with its AST, we can see that the leaf loads sys and exist share the same parent. As expected, this structure is aligned with the attention weight alpha sys and exist between these two loads. We define the attention weight between Wi and Wj as alpha ij given C, and if Wi and Wj are very close, the attention weight should be larger than a threshold. Therefore, the proportion of a high attention token pairs aggregated over a dataset can be formulated as this equation, where alpha ij denotes the attention from S code token to the JS code token, and Fwi and Wj returns 1 if Wi and Wj are in a syntactical relation. This figure shows how attention aligns with the AST structure for CodeBERT and Graph CodeBERT and different programming languages, including Python, Java, and PHP. The figure shows the proportion of high-confidence attention weights that have been defined before. These scores indicate that attention aligns strongly with the motif structure in AST, especially in the deep layers. In RQ2, we propose a structure probing analysis approach to investigate whether a pre-trained model embeds the syntactical structure in its contextual order embedding. The key idea of our approach is that tree structure is embedded if the transformed space has the probability that the distance between two words vectors are correspondent to the path length between the words in the syntax tree. Given a syntax tree, the path length between function deflation and the def is 1, and the path length between in and for is 2. As shown in this figure, we first map the learned contextual order embedding into a transferred space via a matrix B. In the transferred space, the distance between the mapped vectors should be 2. we can learn the mapping matrix B in a supervised learning way. Given a pair of code tokens in AST, we measure the correlation between the predicted distance using order embedding and the golden standard distance in the AST. Especially, we adopt the Spearman correlation matrix. The larger value indicates better performance. Its table shows the experimental results. We also probe the contextual representations in each layer of transformer. In this table, the key indexes the layer of transformer in corresponding model. From this table, we can see that the syntax structure of code has been well preserved in different hidden layers of the pre-trained language models, such as CodeBERT and GraphCodeBERT. In the third RQ, we propose to investigate the capability of pre-trained code models in inducing syntax structure without training. The key insight of our approach is that if the distance between two words are close, they are expected to be close in a syntax tree. For example, sharing the same parent. For example, if the embedding vectors of OPT and meta are close, they are expected to be close in the AST. This motivates us to design a greedy top-down inference algorithm based on recursive partitioning of the input. This table shows the experimental results of RQ3. We introduced 4 traditional greedy top-down tree induction baselines for comparison. Taking the random-based approach as an example, we recursively partition the code snippet based on a randomly selected position. In this table, we only report the F1 scores for 6 common intermediate nodes in Python AST. These results show that the transformer-based pre-training models are more capable of capturing the syntax structure of code to a certain extent through pre-training on a large-scale code corpus. We also show a case study of code snippet with the induced trees based on CodeBERT. We can see that several multiple structures have been captured by CodeBERT. For example, the return images and the self-post-processor. These results can verify the effectiveness of the syntax tree induction. In conclusion, in this work, we conduct a comprehensive structural analysis aiming to provide an interpretation of pre-trained language models for source code. From attention analysis, we find that a word's attention distribution can align with the AST. Secondly, using the word probing, we show that the syntax structure of code is also embedded implicitly in the vectors learned by the model. Thirdly, through syntax tree induction, we also show that the pre-trained models of code have the ability of inducing syntax trees of code. Okay, that's all. Thanks. Please contact us if you have any questions via the following email.